Great. Well, hello, welcome. Thanks for making the time to come along to the webinar today to hear a bit more about the presentations for the IRIS conferences. My name's Katie. I'm the head of engagement at IRIS. And I'm just going to ask the rest of the team if they'd like to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Mike Grocott, and I see all three of you are doing cosmic mining, so you've probably had lots of emails from me, and I know I've spoken to a couple of you via web chat.
Hello, I'm Richard Phillips. I run the Atlas project and COVID and original research. And I think at least one of you is doing Atlas in that list.
Great. Not that it's a competition anyway, but always nice to see see your own projects.
There is.
Yes.
Okay, so today we're just going to talk about what to expect when you turn up at the conference in terms of the students giving their presentations and what you might want to put in your presentation, and a few technical things about the slides themselves, and then a bit about the upcoming deadlines. So do jump in with your questions in the chat if you have them, and at the end we can unmic if there's any outstanding questions. So I'll hand over to you now, Mike.
Thanks, Dr. Katie. Yeah, as Katie said, we're just going to go through, because some of you might not have come to conference before. I think the key thing to remember is conference is a supportive environment, and although it's very, very busy, everyone there wants to be there, and we're there to support each other. So the students really shouldn't be too nervous about presenting. So on the day, 5-minute presentation slot and 5-minute questions and answers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. There'll be 2 blocks of student presentations, AM, PM, and on the day, you'll probably find out which one you're going to be in, because there'll be a time slot. When you arrive, as it says at the bottom, find me. There'll be a team photo taken anyway, and then come down into the main lecture hall, and I'll be standing there, and I'll be able to talk to the students and just make sure that they're familiar with where the computer is for slide advance, or basically the general logistics. The question and answer session we'll manage, and I said we'll talk about that a bit later. And when the students, we're not going to reserve seats for the students who are presenting, but what we would suggest is that when they do sit down for the keynotes, they sit near the end of a line, and if there are 5 of 10 students from the school, make sure those 5 are easily can get out easily, so that it becomes a bit slicker. Because what we don't want is people trying to get out from the middle of a row when there is only quite a tight time scale. Next slide, please, Casey. Now, the actual presentation, we will have a slide with the school's name on. So you don't need to worry about that within yours. You will have 5 slides from the students. Because of that, because we're putting that in intro slide in, as in Knoll School, it's up to the students whether they want to introduce themselves to the audience. And this is why practice is so important. They need to be comfortable with knowing what they're doing. If you've got 5 or 6 people or 5 people in the group, we're not expecting every student to talk. However, it'd be nice if they do all talk, but that is over to them in terms of their presentation practice. And probably one of the most important things is when you submit your presentation by the deadline, that's it. We'll take that and we're going to compile it along with all the other presentations and the day's keynotes into one single presentation. So there won't be an opportunity for any changes on the day. The same as what we don't want people to do is be coming along and saying, well, I've got this on a memory stick. The format, you've had a template, and I'll probably repeat myself here, but it is working in PowerPoint, not Google Slides, not Mac versions. So it really is important. And because of that, as we say, practice, practice, practice. Make sure that it does open on other actual computers, just to make, just to be aware that we don't get a white box with a red cross in it. The template I know Katie sent it to you when she informed you that you were successful, but it is also available on the DRC widescreen format. Please, even in, don't change it to a square format just for use in school. There has to be the widescreen format, and you can get them phase 4 on the DRC. And the phase 4 DRC has lots of resources in there about presenting. It has a peer assessment, self-assessment. It talks about how to present, what to do and what not to do. So please do get them to read that, because we're not just talking about presenting for this conference. These are skills that hopefully they will develop, which will help them within the subjects and in any other presentations they have to do. Key things, videos. It is only 5 minutes. Please, one, the technical difficulty about whether they're embedded, but also we want to hear the students talking rather than a minute and then 4 minutes of a video, which might buffer or might not work. So we would really encourage them not to use them, but it is their presentation. Hyperlinks, we cannot guarantee strong and robust internet at each of our venues. So therefore, again, we would encourage you to avoid them. It's certainly, clicking on something and waiting for it to actually load up and then it might buffer doesn't help the flow of the presentation. It can also knock the students' confidence a little bit. Animations, if they are going to use animations within the presentations, whether it's PowerPoint animations or some third-party GIFs or such like, just check to see if there's any sound. It's better to know than have someone expected a sound pop up like a cartoon, an Acme cartoon. And at the bottom, as it says, practice, practice, practice. It's really important that they do that. Next slide, please. For the question and answer session, as I said, we'll manage that. We'll have a roving microphone if needed. The students potentially will be mic'd up at the on the stage, whether that's a standing lectern. We'll try and find out in advance, or whether it is a microphone that's passed along. I know, I think Exeter, it's not a very large theatre that they're in. So maybe getting them to practice, as you do projecting and what have you. The questions from the audience are not designed to catch them out, because lots of students are going to go through this. However, we will ensure that a question is asked, even if it's one of us having seen the presentations. We'll maybe get a couple of questions together so that they do get that opportunity to answer and communicate a bit more about their research. We'll keep the timing, and as it says, if it does fall very quiet and there aren't any other questions, rather than all just waiting for 5 minutes and it being uncomfortable for the students, we will move it on. They don't need to worry about the timing. The same as they also need to be prepared that their answers need to be not brief, but we might be saying no more questions, or we need to wind up that answer. What is very clear when we have groups of students is when questions do come from the floor, everyone's looking at each other to decide who will actually answer the question. It's good practice, we feel, that if one student is nominated as a person to field the question and then hand over to one of the other students to answer it, rather than everyone just looking at each other. Again, this is all about slickness, it's all about confidence, and it's giving them the experience of presenting to an audience. Richard, have I missed anything? Katie, next slide, please.
Actually, if you could stay on that slide. Sorry. There we go. Just some obvious, things probably everyone already knows, but with regard to the talks, when it comes to the Q&A, just advise your students to not bluff. They've done some great work, but if the question is difficult, then they shouldn't feel as though they should try and answer it and do it unsuccessfully. It's better just to say that they don't know, but they'd be happy to chat about it afterwards. And in terms of the slides themselves, as Mike said, you know, there's limited time. The best talks have got limited text, mostly data, figures, and so on, with no interactive elements at all. So it's best to keep it simple, as Mike says. And if there's more than about 40 words, I'd be worried. It should be more to do with figures and key words that prompt them to say something rather than sentences to read out.
So some of these the presentations are built off the back of the poster, the conference poster. So it is one of those things where there will be time before we start the day when students arrive probably to see posters. So there will be some mingling. So it might be that, as Richard says, if you don't have the answer, you know, come and talk to us at the poster session later, or even they say, that's really interesting, we haven't done that research. However, maybe if the person who asked the question is advised to go and look at the James Webb Space Telescope website for further information, or look at the CERN site. So in a way, it's a confident answer, but they don't need to blag it. I think that's all from Richard and I. Katie, back over to you.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to talk through a few dates. So the first date is getting your slides in. So we are going to collate all of these, as Mike said, to make sure it's all smooth and slick on the day and no one's sort of running around with USB sticks. So we'll ask them these for the 9th of June so we can make sure that they're all combined together. If you've got any concerns about this and you're worried about that deadline, let us know. We'll see what we can do, but otherwise we will be expecting those all in by then. Also an opportunity just to flag, if you haven't got your student permission forms in yet, the ones that the parents need to sign, the deadline for this is this Friday. And if you have forgotten and you're not going to be able to get them to us by the Friday, please let us know. We'll make a note that we're expecting them next week rather than this week. And then, of course, your posters that Mike was talking about. So we will send these off to get them printed, hence this being a slightly earlier deadline. So we're asking for those on Friday, the 19th of May. So we will get those printed and then they'll be on display. So when you arrive at the conference, you'll know what location your poster is, go and find it, and the students will know what to expect. If you would like some feedback on your posters, obviously the team see a lot, and if you're struggling with anything, please do talk to them. And if you do want that sort of feedback and advice, then please do speak to them earlier. So the sooner the better, really, to make sure they've got time to be able to support you and your students. I think that was it. I'm just looking at the chat. Yes, we will share the recording. I'm really sorry about your internet. We all experienced that. Any questions? No, super comprehensive.
Just say, if you do think of something later, you know, I think, yeah, most of you are working with me anyway, or with Neil. Just drop us an email. We can always just have a quick web chat or a phone call if you've got any concerns. The key thing is you don't have to stress and worry about stuff that we can help you with.
Absolutely, we're here. We want to make it a positive experience for the students and a really smooth event. So yeah, let us know if you do think of anything. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you there. Great. Okay, thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye. And there were 3.
Oh, finally.
Let me stop the recording.